Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. It is a great pleasure to welcome you to the concurrent session number 7 of the ICEF forum that also turns out to be the 7th forum. Our session is about the advancement in digital and energy technologies, and I think we have a really eminent panel to discuss this challenging question and the way forward. I have the pleasure of moderating this session. My name is Nebojsa Nakicenovic, but please call me Naki for short. And let me just say that my privilege was that I participated in all of the 7 ICEF, in all of the previous 6 ICEF fora. And my view is that the importance and the visibility of this forum has been increasing in time. But as you know, we live in a very difficult year, very disruptive time with the COVID-19 pandemic. And so that this forum is quite different. It is virtual. We are not all together, and you are also connecting to us via the internet. And I think that was a very good decision of the organizers. And given that our panel, I think, is exceedingly knowledgeable on the topic, I think it promises to be a very interesting and informative session. Let me just say that I would like to start with a few introductory comments and then introduce our eminent panel. Could I have my slides, please? If you could show the first slide. Thank you, and go straight to the second slide, please. So I wanted to start my introductory comments with this caricature. The point is that while the COVID-19 pandemic is a major current threat, immediate threat to humanity, we have the climate change crisis. And this is the reason why the main theme of the ICEF is how to achieve net zero emissions in order to avoid the dangerous climate change. Another huge challenge to humanity is increasing inequality in the world. And the second theme of this ICEF forum is on gender equality, or how to close the gap. And it is, in principle, the topic is about the people and the planet, how to achieve sustainable development in the sense of sustainable development goals. Next slide, please. I would like to start with a historical example that I think shows enormous achievements of humanity in the area of digital and end-use energy technologies. And as you can see, it is about the mobile phones. On top, on the left, you have the first GSM phone that was launched by Motorola in 1992. And I don't know if you can see my picture. I saved mine. I have it 30 years later. This phone was a true revolution. And 30 years later, essentially everybody in the world has a mobile phone. There are 9 billion mobile phones in the world. They've become much smaller, as you can see, increasing smartness to digital technologies, and use only 5 watts of energy. In the middle, you have some of the analog devices that the mobile phone replaces. And on the right, you can see what the energy needs would be of those devices, analog devices. The mobile phones are about 100 times more efficient. It's a huge progress, and they're also about 100 times cheaper than the original Motorola phone, and provide many, many more services. They also require about 25 times materials. So if you put all of that together, they also have a much smaller footprint on the Earth, significantly lower emissions. So I think this is a historical example that shows what are the opportunities of the convergence of the digital and energy technologies in the future that our panelists will be talking about. Next slide, please. So now I would like to introduce our eminent panel. The first speaker will be Anna Piperal, who is the Managing Director of e-Estonia Showroom, Enterprise Estonia. She will be talking about the great success in Estonia of introducing e-government and also addressing the issues of changing social needs, the role of digital technologies, social systems, and the innovation. That will be followed by the 2 presentations on energy issues about the future visions of energy systems based on digital technologies and new behaviors. So the second speaker will be Professor Iwafune Yumiko, who is the project professor at the Institute of Industrial Science at the University of Tokyo. Let me also say that some time ago, we had the pleasure also working together at IASA. I will not mention when that was, as it was a while ago. And then the third speaker, last but certainly not least, is Yamazaki Satoshi, who is the managing director of Accenture Strategy and Consulting in Japan. And as you can see, the three speakers cover a wide spectrum of knowledge, from the governance, introduction of e-governance in the public sector, to academia and to the private sector. So with no further ado, I will now give the floor to the eminent panel members. Let me just say this is a virtual event. All three initial presentations will be streamed, and then I will take the floor again to moderate the discussion. All of you have an opportunity of asking questions. The presentations will take about 20 minutes, and we should have about another 20 minutes then for a vigorous discussion among the panel members. Thank you very much, and please start with the first video.
Hello, my name is Anna, and I'm e-governance expert, e-Estonia Briefing Center Managing Director, and TED speaker, and my mission is to inspire the digital transformation of governments worldwide. Many keep saying the world would enter a new reality post-COVID-19. But what is this new reality going to look like? Is vaccine, remote working, wearing facial masks at all times, and COVID apps usage going to cut it? Addressing the pandemic, the whole world is focused on solving the health-related aspects and problems and might be overlooking some bigger issues. Surely, we cannot be prepared for everything, but from the risk management perspective, pandemic is just one of the possible types of events that can seriously disrupt the functioning of a society, economy, and state governance. Any other crisis, political, military, chemical, natural disaster, even cyber war, can eventually have a serious damaging impact, if not greater. So how can the state guarantee minimal disruption in public services and keep people safe at home or anywhere else? How many countries are able to provide a full range of public services online in a secure and convenient manner? The power and importance of e-governance has been seriously underestimated around the world. While we can argue over clear positive connection between e-services and trust towards the state, lack of safe access to public services could result in a decrease of the public trust, most likely seen as the inability of the state to serve and protect its citizens. Considering a large-scale trust crisis towards governments worldwide and a high demand and readiness of the citizens to use digital channels, I believe discussions about e-governance and e-services should rapidly transform into action plans. 85% of Estonian people trust e-services and use them constantly. A research made this spring has concluded. During the pandemic, not only the system has passed this stress test, but we have seen a serious growth in the daily usage of services online with no additional training or communication needed towards the population. We've been declaring taxes online since 2001. We've been using digital identity and signature since 2002. We've been voting online since 2005, and for today, pretty much the whole range of the public services that you can imagine: education, police, justice, starting a company, applying for benefits, looking at your health records, or challenging a parking ticket. Everything is done online. And we didn't do it by digitizing bureaucracy as it is, but by rather agreeing on a few strong common principles, redesigning rules and procedures, getting rid of unnecessary data collection and task duplication, and becoming open and transparent. So let me give you a hint of some of the design. we work with. First, it is essential to guarantee privacy and confidentiality of data and information. E-identity is a key to achieve that. A strong digital identity that is issued by the state and is compatible with everything. In fact, every Estonian has one. The identity is doubled with a strong digital signature that is accepted, used, and legally binding, both in Estonia and the European Union. When the system can properly and securely identify who is using it, after logging in, it will provide access to the personal data of the citizen and all the public services within one tool and will allow to authorize anything by signing it digitally. One of the most transformative principles is called once only. It means that the state cannot ask for the same data more than once, nor can store it in more than one place. For instance, if you've already provided your birth or marriage certificate to the population registry, this is the only place where the data is going to be held, and no other institution will be asking for it ever again. Once only is a very powerful rule as it defines the whole structure of the data collection within the country. What information is collected and who is responsible for maintaining it, making sure we avoid centralization of data, duplication of data, and guarantee that it's actually up to date. The Estonian system is also based on the principle that an individual is the owner of the data collected about him, thus has an absolute right to know what information is collected and who has been accessing it. So every time a policeman, a doctor, or any state officer is accessing personal information online, first, they only get access to the services after logging in, and only when they're authorized to do their job. And secondly, every time they're making requests, it's saved in a log file. The log file is part of the state public services and allows real transparency, making sure no privacy violation will remain unnoticed to the citizen. Estonia has provided 99% of the public services over the internet for years, so a pandemic did not really change the way we operate, neither created any significant disruptions. Digitally running a country internally and externally providing services was possible since 2001, when the first data exchange layer, called ICEF, was introduced. Connecting all key public and private institutions in a secure data exchange, this became the backbone of our digital society that is enabling over 3,000 e-services today and saves over 3 million working hours annually. Confidentiality and privacy are definitely very important, as well as the stability of the data. But in the digital world, reliability and integrity of information is just critical operations. For instance, if someone changes your medical health record, let's say allergies, without your doctor knowing, the treatment could be deadly. That's why in a digital society, a system like Estonian, when there's no paper originals, there's almost only digital originals, the integrity of data exchange rules, software components, and log files is paramount. In this case, Estonians became the pioneers of the blockchain that we invented back in 2007, way before blockchain even became a thing, to check and guarantee the integrity of data in real time. Blockchain is our auditor and a promise that no access to the data or data manipulation remains unrecorded. So the bigger goal, of course, here is to provide secure, 24/7 accessible, inclusive services that are so user-friendly that even a kid could use them, or they would be happening automatically. And while doing so, guarantee the privacy, the confidentiality, and the integrity of data, as well as provide full transparency of the state government actions. As a side bonus, it all is impacting the citizen satisfaction and engagement level and keeping the state budget more efficient. Estonian system has really proven to be indispensable during the crisis and beyond because of its resiliency and efficiency. So what's next? Looking into the future, proactive service is exactly what's one of the main trends, to automatize public services based on different life events, eliminating bureaucracy at all. Life events like childbirth, marriage, starting a business, unemployment, retirement, or buying a car will trigger a bundled, user-centered e-services and data exchange. Some of these services are already in development this year and over 50 services planned for the future. For instance, if you had a baby, due to the exchange of the data between state institutions and the hospital, all benefits, allowances will be paid automatically and the kid assigned to the closest kindergarten and school next to their home. Or for instance, when you're getting married, your new name and documents will be ordered and delivered to your mailbox, together with a happy greetings from the state. With 99% of all state services online today and massive usage, the next level of public services will definitely be connected to AI. From 2019 to 21, the Estonian government has pledged more than 10 million euros to implement this national AI strategy. Correct AI would entail an opportunity for people to use public, direct and informational services by voice-based interaction with AI-based virtual assistants. So anyone using any device could use and voice their request, and the system behind would act to fulfill the need. There will be no need for special skills or knowledge to use it. There will be no need to use any specific devices, and it will be interoperable, and no need to rely on someone's memory, as the state can inform if there's any document that needs to be exchanged. The world is changing, and the pandemic has become a catalyst for this change. People's minds are more ready than ever. Let's build the zero bureaucracy future together. Thank you very much.
My name is Yumiko Iwafune from University of Tokyo. Thank you for this opportunity. Today's topic is advancements in digital and energy technologies. So I'll be presenting under the title Utilization of Demand-Side Resources for Energy Efficiency and Demand Response in Japan. My expertise is in energy system model evaluation, and I'm particularly interested in how to best use small-scale resources on demand side to solve energy problems. Flexible distributed energy resources on demand side are expected to contribute to stable power system operation, including massive renewable energy. We call these resources DERs. We have a lot of small DERs in Japan. For example, heat pump water heaters, electric vehicle batteries, and residential stationary storage batteries, and so on. And a number of VPP, virtual power plant demonstration projects to bundle these small resources are currently ongoing in various locations. And how many DERs are available in Japan? In regards to heat pump water heaters, cumulative sales were over 7 million units in 2018. Government target in 2030 is 14 million units. Existing equipment is operated during the late night and early morning hours when electricity rates are low and cannot be remotely controlled. Some of new products can be controlled remotely. Regarding to residential stationary batteries, cumulative sales were 360,000 units in 2019. They are increasing rapidly due to recent disasters such as typhoons. Many are being operated independently, but are slowly beginning to be remotely controlled by aggregators. Regarding to electric vehicle, cumulative installation of pure battery EV and plug-in EV was 240,000 units in 2018. Government target in 2030 is 9 million units. Hybrid vehicles are driving the sales of electric vehicles in Japan. Regarding BEV and PHEVs, the number of sales has peaked because the number of types of vehicles is limited. A demonstration on market price-linked charging of EV was launched this year. The use of charge and discharge control is limited due to the high price of V2X devices. For instance, the number of households in Japan is approximately 50 million. So how much potential is there for DER as a flexible resource? This figure shows the results of our evaluation of the demand response effect of heat pump water heaters and EVs by simulating the electricity supply and demand balance in 2030 when 100 gigawatt of PV and 32 gigawatt of wind power installed. 9 million of EVs and 14 million of heat pump water heaters could each provide about 15 gigawatt of flexible power resources. Optimal heat pump water heater operation provides demand response effect of avoiding PV output curtailment. Furthermore, heat pump water heater operates primarily during the day when solar radiation is high, which saves electricity consumption due to high outside temperatures and reduced tank losses. Regarding to EVs, the value of battery use is low if only charge control is available because of a short driving distance in Japan. Charge and discharging control increases the value of EV batteries. Let me introduce Miyakojima Island Smart Community Demonstration Project. They are demonstrating group control of controllable loads such as heat pump water heaters and batteries to improve the load factor of the power system and absorb PV surplus under the limited conditions of an island. They are investigating a business model based on a third-party ownership model for heat pump water heaters and storage batteries, and constructing a cloud-based control system while avoiding increasing communication and management costs. This is a comprehensive and advanced demonstration that considers economy, technological applicability, and consumer acceptance. PV and heat pump water heater installations during 2018 and 2019 were for 202 units in 40 municipal houses and 10 welfare facilities. Expectations for the year utilization are high, but the barriers are also high. The small capacity of the yards makes it difficult to control them cost-effectively. For further deployment, the following problems need to be clear. First of all, we need to spread the resources. In particular, stronger support will be needed for the further adoption of EVs. And we need to build an aggregation system of DERs using digital technologies. Further reduction of communication and control cost is also needed. In addition to the technical challenges, appropriate market design is also needed for the value of these resources to be realized. And last, for the management of millions of DRs, construction of grid core for DRs is also required. Thank you for your attention.
I am Yamazaki from Accenture. I would like to talk about the presentation entitled Role of Digital Technology in Energy Transition. Digital technology, what sort of role it can play for a transition to renewable energy using case studies. First of all, energy companies, how they can change from present to future. From the left, the power generation, the thermal power and other conventional generation will be transitioned to large-scale renewable energy or storage-based power generation. And in the middle, you see the transmission and distribution business. And as for these businesses, obviously, the grid system that can contribute to distribution and transmission will be made, and for retail, connection with EV and HEMS will be improved, and connected services will be the form that they will be transitioned to. And those three business areas, the power generation network and connected energy services, they are overlapped with each other to go through transformation. At Accenture, for those three areas, we have come up with 21 priority topics, and of those, what has become a hot topic, the offshore wind power, and also energy IoT platform will be taken up as topics to talk about today. First, the offshore wind power. The UK is ahead of us, and let me just take up their example. On this page, you can see the UK offshore wind current status in one glance. And the UK, the capacity is 7.9 gigawatt with 38 wind farms in the UK. And in the world, this is the largest installed capacity, and it represents 43% of the all European offshore wind power. And if you look at the domestic business, 8% of the power generation is switched over to offshore wind in the energy mix, and the cost for the past 10 years, the most recent third bidding auction, the price has gone down to less than £40 per megawatt hour. And by 2030, 30 gigawatt in installed capacity is the target. They have this ambition. And so the next decade, there will be a leapfrog growth in capacity that is scheduled. And with regard to the capacity factor, it's 40%. And turbines are going to be introduced to the order of 12 megawatts. So that is their plan. And this is looking back on the past. In 2011, Accenture came up with the offshore wind power report, and back then we had expected what would happen in 2020, which is this year. And looking back, actually that's exactly what happened. And the cost has declined from £150 to £40, and the turbine size has increased from 2 megawatt to 12 meg. And there's offshore visits, On the offshore wind platform, the engineers' visits have been reduced to less than half for the last 4 years. And the capacity factor, as I said, has reached 40%, and in some cases it has achieved 50% even. And in addition, the offshore wind power related supply chain has been also beginning to be established, which is an important aspect. And also dedicated purpose-built vessels have been developed. And the cost has declined because in O&M, digital technologies have been introduced. That is the major reason. And in terms of cost or life cycle cost, 40% is accounted for by O&M. In terms of timeline, the 70% of capacity life cycle is O&M. And on offshore platform visits have been reduced to less than half for the last 4 years. That's what I said. And the technologies that were developed and nurtured during O&M have been fed back to EPC, and condition monitoring sensors were introduced at the stage of EPC. So with that investment, operation cost has been reduced in turn. Using digital technologies, automation and remote control and management have been improved, and that has helped reduce the cost further. Another example is Energy IoT Platform. In Japan, we are still at the stage of demonstration or partial introduction, but this is an example from China. A large-scale platform has already emerged in China. And this company, Envision, in 2007 was founded as a turbine manufacturer, and it is still amongst the top 5 turbine manufacturers in the world. But Envision Digital department has been also set up, and storage business has been acquired. So it has transformed itself to energy service company. And the energy platform that they offer, as is written here, is used in 90 gigawatt wind power and 16 gigawatt or more of photovoltaic power, and the platform is connected to those facilities worth this much gigawatt, and the optimization algorithm has been being developed on a day-to-day basis. That's how it is in China. So this distributed power generation optimization technologies are digital technologies, and the platform of Envision is used in smart city in Singapore in reality. So those are the 2 examples that I wanted to share with you today. In Europe and in China, renewable energy penetration has been making rapid progress, and behind that was the digital technologies that was essential. And digital technologies have supported the speed of the transformation for the past 10 years. And in the post-COVID-19 world, digital transformation will be accelerated, and the speed will be further improved in the digital transformation. So that's all for myself. Thank you for your attention.
Well, I would like to thank all of the 3 panelists for really great presentations. I think they were very interesting, but also pertinent to the topics of our session. So now we have about 25 minutes for the discussion among the panelists, and we will try to address some of the questions from the audience as well. Let me start with the first question to you, Anna, and then I will go to the other panelists. First of all, I was very much impressed by the enormous progress of e-governance in Estonia. I think it's a great success. In particular, I know that you mentioned that the blockchain technology was utilized for the e-governance platform. I think the convergence of different technologies is the key to achieving what you have done. And my understanding is also that the idea is diffusing to other countries, so that might be also kind of a technology cooperation. My question would be, while this all looks great, there are always winners and losers. You mentioned that 3 million hours of work have been saved through digital technologies. I hope that that means that other employment will be generated, but I just wanted to ask you to comment on that. The benefits are enormous, there is no doubt about it. How can we avoid the barriers and potential disbenefits?
Thank you for this question. So the major felt downside could be some of the that might be feeling left behind because of lacking the skills. So majorly it's connected with employment, and this is one of the major fears. But when introduced right, digital technologies, it's like there's two things that you have to do. First, if you don't have the population who have the skills to use those e-services, you can just design them in a very user-friendly or even automated way. So you will not have it as an issue. You will still be providing a very inclusive service to anyone without any skills. But when it comes to employment, there also has to be a culture of cultivating the new skill set. And this is something that unavoidably, whether it's e-governance or just technology entering our world from any other private sector side, this is something that will guarantee people a long-term employment. Because as you mentioned, using of digital technologies and integration them into different fields create this enormous efficiency. And the only way we have seen that so many times in the past, how it is disruptive. So we have to get ready. So we have to teach the people, and re-educate them. So lifelong learning would be one of the major investments for a country to prevent it. And also the downside could also be, using a good means for bad purposes. Building digital society, all the elements are important, and especially those which allow control of the citizens over the data and the transparency that the government has to provide, together with the log files and access to the private data of the citizen, to guarantee that there is no violations. In many countries, the state has all the data, but is not giving away the transparency and the control over this area. So as like in any relationship, trust and mutual transparency is the key for it to move forward. Like knife can be used for bad purposes and for good purposes. So let's use technologies in a good way so we can avoid all those downsides. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So trust in the knowledge society, in the digital future, through the digital revolution, I think is the key. And thank you for those comments. The next question I would like to ask Yumiko-san. I think the end-use improvement of the end-use technologies is the key also for the energy systems and neglected very often. And I think you have illustrated that the potential is huge in Japan. I think that's true worldwide. Our analysis indicates that for 1 unit of end-use energy saved or avoided, one would save 7 units of primary energy, which means we would be also on the good way of decarbonization. Now, my question to you is related to one comment that you made, that much of this introduction would be done through third-party ownership. That might be related to a possibility of the shared economy. So I think many of these efficiency improvements will require our behavioral changes, just like the digital technology that Anna was talking about. Would you comment a little bit about how can we promote the behavioral changes in Japan and perhaps everywhere in general, because they will be needed?
It's a difficult question. Let me talk in Japanese, sorry.
The changes in the behavior amongst the consumers is something that I have been involved in all the time, and I have been giving a lot of thoughts to that. But energy and power, electricity, there is not that much passion that people have toward these. So facilitating behavioral change through that would be difficult. However, because of the impact from COVID-19, especially work from home has increased, and the power consumption at home is increasing. So electricity charges is something that people have been keenly interested in. So there is a possibility where we can change their behavior. But when it comes to penetration and diffusion of heat pump, hot water system or electric vehicles, you have to reduce the cost to facilitate the diffusion. So there should be some carrot and stick type of policy from the government. In California, by 2035, all new vehicles should be electric vehicles. That's the policy that they have announced. But honestly speaking, the policy is as strong as that one is needed to have an explosive increase. Of course, we're expecting the battery price to go down, and if possible, if there's external pressure to Japan to reduce the cost of DER in Japan, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you for that response, and also for mentioning COVID-19, because I think we will probably all agree in our audience that the quick response of our societies to the challenge through behavior changes that were regulated by the public sector was surprisingly strong. So I think it's also possible that in the acceptance of digital technologies and efficiency in energy, that might be the case as well. So thank you very much for that response. My third question would go to Satoshi-san, who, as you know, works in the private sector for Accenture Strategy and Consulting. And my understanding is that Accenture is taking a role in looking into the role of innovation in the future company strategies and visions. I've seen the word that the private sector has to reinvent itself to meet this challenge. So and sustainable development. So I would like to ask Satoshi-san maybe to comment on that in the context of the great example that he has brought about Internet of Things. How can that converge with the other energy technologies, and also the improvement of the offshore wind?
Let me answer that question in Japanese. At Accenture, we have energy company as clients, and we're dealing with them in our business. So energy transformation has been impacted by the digital technologies, and that's what we see every single day. And as I said, in the offshore wind power example, it's not just the digital technologies, but using digital technologies will help reduce the cost, and that has been the case. And for example, in the case of offshore wind power, supply chain foundation can be established, and that has generated new employment. And so new transformation is also happening, and that's what happened for the past 10 years, in my understanding. And if you look into the next 10 years, the digital technologies will be the key in bringing about a large transformation. That's our thoughts.
Thank you very much. So these are really huge opportunities, but I guess there are also barriers that all of the three of you mentioned. So what I would like to do now is go to the questions from our audience. The first question is actually from the chair of ICEF, and it's related to our theme, namely how to close the gender gap. So his question is, how can we increase, would these technologies, in particular digitalization, increase or decrease the gender gap? And the second part of the question is, how could women change that in the right direction? And I know, Anna, you talked about the e-governance offering a platform for allocating kindergartens. There might be other services that can help close the gender gap. And I think that's the same for energy supply and energy end use. So perhaps each of you, please, short answers because we are running out of time. So Anna goes first, and then Yumiko-san and Satoshi, and I just go one after the other, please.
So I hope you can hear me now. Thank you for this interesting question. So digital service is actually a great platform to avoid any kind of gaps, whether it's racial or like any kind of issues, because it's super inclusive. When you're communicating with a computer, there is no personal bias that can be there in order to provide the services to you. So in a way, it is empowering for women who can have more control of their lives, of the services they're getting access to. And when we speak about the public services specifically for women, in Estonia, there's great opportunities for kind of manage your social life when it comes to caring for the baby and all the kind of support system services, so a woman can be on the market again faster. So I would totally see that this digital transformation just gives an opportunity and more voice to women to access the services. Like Lola was speaking about digital voting and I-voting, because no one can vote for you. You have to vote with your personal digital identity, and you can do it as many times as you like. The last vote will count. So there's going to be no influence from anyone else. So this is when it comes to kind of a voice of a woman. And will the woman change the direction of transformation? I really do hope so, because majorly technology was led and driven by men mostly, which means they didn't have the female energy in it. So if we put the female part to it, it's going to be disrupted anyway. And women are more kind of, in my personal view, focused on collaboration and making things work together, and kind of any kind of negotiation, making things work together better in a maybe non-technological form, but for the efficiency in technology. So I think this change is going to be there for sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Yumiko-san, please.
I think her answer is perfect, so I don't need to add something. But so only one thing. Now I'm always staying at home to work, and I don't need to go to my university. So it saves a lot of times, and Zoom conference is very convenient for me. I can talk with my colleagues while cooking supper. So I think digital technology helps a lot of mothers. I think so. Yeah.
Thank you, Satoshi-san. Satoshi-san.
はい、そうですね。
Yes. With regard to the gender gap, I think this gap can be closed, at least partially, due to digital technologies. At least I believe in that. Today we have discussion amongst the four of us, and I'm speaking in Japanese, others may be speaking English. We are located at different places, we are different races, but we are talking to each other at the same time because of the digital technologies. And we have translators translating. Eventually translation will be automated. There will be no wall between parties when they communicate, and there will be lot easier environment for people who want to work. For the past 6 months, we have faced this COVID pandemic. I think that actually accelerated the change.
Thank you very much. The time is going very quick. This very interesting discussion. I have 2 more questions from the audience that I would like to ask all 3 of you to respond to, but quickly, please, or very shortly if you can. The first one is that both digital and energy technologies can improve the efficiency enormously, and the participant is worrying that might increase the consumption, the so-called rebound effect. So the question is, how can we limit that? How can we limit the rebound effect or increase in demand through the efficiency improvements? Anna, first, please.
Well, I don't think the role of the government initially is to decrease the spending. It is to increase the demand and the quality of the service they're providing. First of all, so when we just look at, for example, use of digital signature alone, e-identity and digital signature, there's 2% of GDP that is saved yearly just because people don't sign papers. So one clear efficiency indicator, and very small line. Or the data exchange that is saving over 1,000 working years, commuting, going anywhere, doing things yearly when all the institutions are exchanging data. So you get the efficiency, and for such countries like Estonia, where we have a very limited budget to provide all the same set of services, we have managed to see that this is really beneficial. And even for larger countries, the more people you have, the more mass effect you will have, developing Microsoft and then having as many users as you'd like. If it works automatically, you don't have an additional investment. Thank you.
Thank you. Yumiko-san, for energy, this is important, but there would be the rebound effect.
Effect. ただですね、
Well, when it comes to energy consumption, it won't work like the telecommunication consumption. It won't exclusively increase, even no matter how much you use the power, there will be a limit. So I don't expect the electricity consumption to explosively increase, even if energy efficiency increases. I think the price is more important, probably. So I don't have much worry about power consumption increase. If you look at the residential energy consumption, because of the better efficiency, the usage and consumption has been actually declining in Japan. That's all.
Thank you. Satoshi-san?
Well, as Professor Iwafune said, with regard to energy, I don't think rebound effect will take place. In Japan, for the past 10 years, since the Great East Japan earthquake, what we have witnessed is exactly what I said. Energy consumption has been declining. But on the other hand, digital technologies have been promoted, and sharing economy or circular economy have been facilitated. The economy where you don't buy things as much as you used to, and new services are being created. And I think that is what is going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this really great responses to, I think, a difficult question. I share the same view. For example, since I've been driving an electric car that is much more efficient than combustion car, I don't drive more. So it is in some cases also a question of the prices of the new technologies. And last but not least, in developing countries, we actually want a rebound effect. We want people to have more commodities. It's only industrialist countries that I think it is important to reduce the demand. So I have one more question that I think might be simple to answer, but we only have 6 more minutes. So the question is whether it is possible to measure better CO2 emissions of each individual and set a limit using digital technologies. So that refers both to the energy and other sectors. And let's do it in the same order. Anna, you go first. Quick answers, please.
Thank you. So I'm not sure if it is possible to set the limit using digital technologies, but if you set the norm of using digital technologies, and this is going to be the standardized process for not driving to the state office, but doing that from home, signing things from home, not commuting anywhere. So this already will have a giant decrease in CO2, paper consumption, driving around, so use of electricity and so on. So I'd really love to see that happen.
Thank you. Yumiko-san?
In Japan, by 2024, all of the customers will have smart meters set up. Utilizing smart meters, we'll be able to measure power consumption of individuals, not gas. But to a certain extent, it is possible to measure utilizing technologies like that. We'll be able to operate the energy center, but can we put the limit on the consumption? Maybe during an emergency, it is possible, but that shouldn't be a limit. We should avoid such a situation by utilizing technologies, renewable energies, and also electrification and digital technologies. I think we should use technology to solve problems so that the situation like that would never happen.
Satoshi-san?
Yes, with digital technologies, to a certain extent, we can manage and possibly limit. But when this question is asked, personally, I would like to see myself limited or managed by somebody else. How far can we strictly manage with digital technologies? We have to consider the conscientiousness of people and social system. If there is a limit, there must be a limit based on the social agreement. We talked about e-government, so that will be the topic that will be discussed in e-government framework.
Thank you. So I guess your response is that in principle it is possible, and it would be very useful to provide the information to consumers, but at the same time we have to make sure we have the freedom of choice. And if that's I fully agree with that. Now we have 3 more minutes. I don't want to put too much pressure on you, but I would like to ask each of you if you have very brief concluding comments, let's say 20, 30 seconds, and then I would like to summarize our session before we end. We start with you, Anna, again.
Yeah, well, my message is very short. The demand for digital services is as high as ever, and this is the door that is now open. E-governance is a very good way to also support the environment and in a long-term way. So let's try to do this together globally.
Thank you. Yumiko-san?
I envy Estonia's government. I hope Japanese government will also be like Estonia's government. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Satoshi-san?
The topics for today have been really interesting to me, and that reminded me of myself being a Japanese. So from a Japanese point of view, we have to accelerate the change using cool earth or energy transformation. I'd like to see energy transformation being accelerated. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I would like to thank you. I would like to thank the Secretariat for excellent organization, and of course our audience also for posing the questions and listening to all of us. You know, just in the last minute, let me just say that I enjoyed the discussion a lot and have learned a lot. I have no doubt that somehow humanity is at the crossroads. We have these huge opportunities that you talked about, but we also have the challenges to overcome. And I hope that the convergence of digital and energy technologies can get us on that right way. And as Satoshi-san also said, the demand is huge. We need to accelerate the transformative change in order to make sure that we have the cool earth for the future generations, I would say, in the digital and very energy efficient world. So with those words, I would like to thank you again, and I hope to see you all at the next ICEF. Thank you very much. And I hope that if we have some more questions, that we can do that by email. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.